Boy, do we have a lot to celebrate this week. To begin with, Jewish New Year starts tomorrow at sunset, Rosh Hashanah. And then there's Mabon, the pagan celebration of the autumnal equinox. And who can forget that the first meeting of the Transcendentalist Club was held on September 19, 1836. Today is also International Day of Peace and World Gratitude Day. It's Bisexual Pride Day and Awareness Week. Both happened this week. And there's also Hispanic Heritage Month, which started this past Monday. And I would be remiss if I forgot to mention that Talk Like a Pirate Day was on Friday. And of course, tomorrow is Worldwide Hobbit Day. So with all of that on the calendar, you can imagine how tough it was for me to decide on a topic for today's sermon. Anyway, I decided to ignore all of that, and instead I'm going to tell you about a man that I admire a great deal, Father Greg Boyle. Maybe some of you have heard of him. I first met Greg Boyle in the late 1990s. At the time, I was in seminary at Claremont School of Theology and taking a religious education class with Dr. Frank Rogers, whose approach to religious ed centers on compassion and social engagement because of his awareness of the amount of trauma that exists in the lives of children and youth. Dr. Rogers often talked about childhood trauma during his chapel services in a way that could absolutely bring me to tears. I don't know what I expected when Dr. Rogers arranged for a field trip to Father Boyle's office one sunny afternoon. But when we arrived at Father Boyle's parish, the Dolores Mission Parish in East LA, I learned that it was situated between two large housing projects, Aliso Village and Pico Gardens, projects that housed a total of 8 rival gangs. While we walked around the neighborhood with the impressive Father Boyle, we saw street corners bedecked with flowers. But this wasn't some sort of colorful decoration. No, those flowers were memorials for young people who had been shot and killed on those street corners. Today, Father Boyle has buried over 260 gang members. But Father Boyle also showed us one of the budding efforts he and a few others were starting, something called Homeboy Bakery, and I'll talk about that in a little while. Boyle related that he had started his ministry in Bolivia, which he said was the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere at that time. Based on his experience with the poverty-stricken, he talks about being in awe of what the poor have to carry, rather than in judgment about how they carry it. I think that's worth repeating. Being in awe of what the poor have to carry, rather than in judgment about how they carry it. His exposure to such poverty affected him deeply, and when he was about to be reassigned to a university campus ministry back in the States, he decided to ask for a different post. His bishop said, "All I have is the Dolores Mission Parish," and the die was cast. When he arrived at the parish, a young priest, he knew 2 things. On Saturday, he was to perform rites of passage rituals, baptisms, first communions, marriages, and funerals. And then, of course, Mass was on Sunday. But during the week, he sat idly in his office, waiting for people to come and visit him, and he was at a loss for what to do when they didn't. He was restless, and he began walking and riding his bike around the neighborhood. The local police warned him that such wandering risked his safety, but he kept at it. Father Boyle is an extroverted, outgoing soul, and he soon found himself in conversation with the young people hanging out on the street when they should have been in school. When Boyle asked them why they weren't, they explained that they had been kicked out. When he asked if they would go back, if he could find a school to take them, to a person, they said yes. Well, try as he might, he couldn't find one. In frustration, he asked if the nuns in his parish would be willing to make space in their living quarters for a school for these young people. The nuns agreed, and the school was born. But he knew it wasn't enough if he was really, truly going to make a difference. Young people need jobs. And so he approached some of the mothers of the gang members, asking if they would help him look for what he calls felony-friendly businesses to employ their sons and daughters. Well, again, try as they might, there were few and far between. Undaunted, they found ways to create work for the youngsters, first setting up gardening crews and graffiti removal squads in the neighborhood. That was how the whole thing got started back in about 1988. Then in 1992, a few years before my visit, Hollywood film producer Ray Stark heard about the work Father Boyle was doing. Stark invited Boyle to his office and explained that he happened to have, a few $1 million hanging around that he didn't know what to do with. So Boyle isn't a shy man, so he said, well, there's an abandoned bakery down the street from us with broken down ovens. Would you like to buy that and refurbish it? And Boyle said that was the extent of his business plan. So that is exactly what they did, and Homeboy Industries was born. Boyle has a great saying. He says that the bakery doesn't hire ex-gang members so that they can bake bread. They bake bread so that they can employ former gang members. Today, Father Boyle is head of Homeboy Industries, which includes enterprises such as Homegirl Catering and Cafe, Homeboy Silkscreen and Embroidery, the Homeboy Diner, a new offshoot, Homeboy Cafe and Bakery, which opened at LAX this year via a licensing agreement, Homeboy and Homegirl Merchandise, Homeboy Grocery, and Homeboy Farmers Markets. No matter the business, the goal is the same, to create jobs that offer gang members an exit ramp from gang life. But impressive as all of that is, they do even more. They provide wraparound support services like tattoo removal, legal aid, mental health, anger management, anything that will help overcome what Father Boyle calls a lethal lack of hope that drives these young people into gangs. Father Boyle now leads the largest gang intervention and rehabilitation program in this country and indeed the world, with over 10,000 people coming through their doors every year. They are essentially paying people to reclaim their lives and their mental health. And while all this is impressive and a remarkable model that they don't want to franchise, but they do teach others about it so that they can implement it in their own settings. The secret sauce is the love and kinship that Father Boyle and his team practice that create and pervade the atmosphere of Homeboy's efforts. They believe in love and kinship that Father Boyle, love and consistently reliable support. They believe that no one is outside the circle, that all of us, no exceptions, are unshakably good at our core. We Unitarian Universalists would say that we all are inherently worthy and dignified. But Boyle doesn't think that language is strong enough. He says we belong to each other, no exceptions. That you, that we, all of us belong. He says that when you can find that core of goodness within yourself, you are home and never need be homesick again. Let's try that on for a moment. You are unshakably good. See what that feels like. You are unshakably good. However, it's true that most of those able to feel that sense of being at home usually have been shown love by their caregivers from an early age. Those who have not, especially those who have suffered trauma, may experience what is called disordered attachment. Healthy attachment typically forms in children between 6 and 18 months of age. But if your caregiver is frightened or frightening, that attachment will not form properly. When a child hasn't been soothed, it doesn't know how to soothe itself. And the result? Emotional detachment, aggression, social withdrawal, heightened anxiety, depression, poor social skills, and challenges in school. What Boyle has found is something that he calls cherished belonging, the title of his most recent book. And that this cherished belonging can begin to repair the injury of disordered attachment. I would describe cherished belonging as when our eyes light up when you enter the room. When people can look past any surface imperfections and see you for your unshakable goodness. Cherished belonging at Homeboy does, in fact, seem to repair disordered attachment. You can see it in a hug or a high five. You can see it in jokes and laughter. You can see it when gang members who used to shoot guns at each other are now shooting hilarious texts back and forth. Cherished belonging can be a conscious practice that invites us to nurture the connection between us with kindness and tenderness. In our divided world, full of discord, cherished belonging offers us a transformative vision of community and compassion. It's a practice that stands with people on the margins until there are no more margins and no more throwaway people. So let me tell you a story that I think says a lot about the concept of cherished belonging. I heard and was moved by this story years ago, and it has since gone viral on the internet. No one seems to be able to locate its origins, so it might be a fairy tale, or it might be a compilation of indigenous practices of an idealized group of people. Even so, I think it holds wisdom for all of us. And so I'd like to tell it to you. Long ago and far away, or perhaps as close as your own breath, and happening right now, right this very moment, there is a village somewhere where the tradition is that when a child is wanting to come into this world and a woman is is ready to bear this child. Before it is even conceived, she goes out into nature and she listens for the song of this child that wants to be born. And when she has heard it and learned it, she comes back and sings it to her partner, so her partner knows the song. And when the child is conceived, she then teaches it to the midwives who will help bring this child into the world. And the whole village learns the song so that when the child is born and the naming or dedication ceremony takes place, the whole village can sing this child its song. And then that happens again and again at various life passages, at coming of age, at their wedding. And should, if and when, this child gets into some kind of trouble, the whole village circles the child and sings its song and returns the child back to itself. And then the last thing this person hears as they leave this earthly existence and transition into another plane, the village sings this song to them as they make their transition. Now, most of us don't grow up with a song that's been sung to us. We're not welcomed into the world that way. Few of us seem to know our song, the author David Blanchard writes. In today's world, many of us struggle to recognize our song. But if the story is true, then whether we know it or not, our song is still there, waiting for us. Isn't that an astounding idea? Not just that the song exists, but that it's always been there. When we find our song, it can sing back to us something of our essence, something of our truth, something of our uniqueness. When we sing our song, when others sing our song back to us, it's not about approval, but about recognizing our individualized being, and at the same time, our goodness and belonging in the wider human family, our cherished belonging, as Father Boyle would say. Blanchard writes that the songs can be songs of love or of longing, songs of encouragement or of comfort, songs of struggle or security, but most of all, they can be the songs of life, giving testimony to what has been, giving praise for all we are given, giving hope for all we strive for, giving voice to the great mystery that carries each of us in and out of this world. Father Boyle talks about loving one another and then rolling up our sleeves to help repair the feelings of alienation. And so I will point to our motto here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Anaheim, which is be yourself here. Those three words represent a beautiful way to say that, simply by being who you already are. You already belong to this place, here with us, and we will cherish you. So, if you're brave enough, let's turn to the person next to us and say to them right now, you belong here. You belong here. You belong here.
We belong here.
Those of us who have found cherished belonging, whether here or elsewhere, are the luckiest people in the world We know and are accepted just as we are. And we know that we can be loved when we simply are ourselves. Father Boyle has shown that this kind of love and belonging can heal former gang members. Think of what it can do for the wider world. Think of what it can do in a place like Anaheim. I have to say that if there is a mission for a community like ours, Cherished Belonging sounds like a wonderful place to start. And so when newcomers arrive, when the room lights up, when we greet them, and when we turn to them with love in our eyes, a love that says, we are glad that you're here, we are giving them a wonderful gift. And then we simply widen the circle. Father Boyle would say that whenever personal issues or concerns that we may have, they don't need to set us apart from one another. The idea of cherished belonging can heal us. It can bridge divisions between us and others. How do we start? It's simple. Just by showing love and kindness to another. Can it be done all at once and once and for all? No. But we're lucky to have the remarkable example of Father Boyle before us. And we have his guidance because he actually tells us how we can start by remembering to practice love with every breath we take. So let's start here. Let's start today. Let's start remembering our song. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. So may it be.